Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Alchemy Lab. This is Vinh.
Hi.
Hi. If you don't know Vinh Giang, he is the world famous magician and keynote speaker and entrepreneur who's just made a massive journey. So we're going to find out all about you, Vinh, on the Alchemy Lab today. So the reason we call this the Alchemy Lab, of course, is that I am an alchemy practitioner, thanks to one guy called Paulo Coelho, who wrote a book called The Alchemist, but that's another story, and we'll have a conversation about that. But so the metaphor of this podcast is that we're in the lab. Welcome to my lab. Thanks for coming in. We are expecting big things, Vinh. I have to say, we're expecting maybe a few magic tricks. Who knows? We might.
All right. Sure.
No pressure. No. What we're here to do today is, in fact, we're going to run two sessions, everyone. Welcome everybody for joining the lab today. We're going to run two sessions. Vinh and I are both fans, devoted, committed fans to this book.
Yeah.
Okay, changed our lives. That's the one thing Vinh and I have in common. As for magic tricks, I'm going to have to leave all that to Vinh. As for being an international keynote speaker, I'm going to leave all that to Vinh as well. Being an all-round great, amazing guy, then that is who Vinh is. And he's made massive transformations throughout his life, which is why he's sitting in his garage studio today. Not in California. Vinh, you're back in Adelaide, Australia, correct?
Yeah, look, Colm, I actually made the decision to come back to Australia well before COVID kind of hit. Okay. I made that decision for my own happiness and my soul. Look, I'm not, nothing bad with the US. It's just that I was chasing career like a madman over there and lost track of what was important to me. And it was funny, reading The Alchemist again was what really sparked, the journey of, oh, look, I think everything's slowly becoming sheep to me again. For those who've read the book, I feel like I'm just taking care of sheep, and I need to explore once again. So yeah.
So why don't we both just briefly tell our story about our relationship to the book, and then what I'd love to do for this first session is actually discuss what the book has meant to us. I watched a podcast that you did recently with a good friend of yours where you guys talked about it. So I've been so devoted to the book that as you know, I've actually written my own book called The Secret of the Alchemist, in which I attempt, hopefully with some success, to completely unpack the magic, the lessons, and the meaning that whether he fully realized it or not, that Paulo Coelho conveyed in the original Alchemist. I've actually got the original cover. Can I just show everybody? Not everybody knows about this. This is the original. That was the original cover of The Alchemist.
Wow. Was that the one because you said you were the first to publish it here in Australia, weren't you?
I was. So that, so just a quick story. That
fascinating.
That photocopy, not that original one, but the original one. That photocopy landed on my desk on a Friday afternoon. This is the connection with California. It had come all the way from California, together with the manuscript, which was on A4 paper, stapled together. Can you believe? I didn't keep it. I should have kept that manuscript. You regret some things. That's just one of the things I regret in my life. And I normally never took work home at the weekend, but that cover just, I don't know, said, "Take me home." The sun, the moon, the figure, the alchemist figure, the shepherd boy, and I took it home. I read it in a single sitting on a Sunday afternoon in my backyard in Sydney, Australia, and I just knew, because of the spiritual self-transition journey that I've been on through my life, I just knew this was going to be a mega bestseller. And I went back to the company and I said, this is probably, I'm not going to exaggerate, but I actually think this is going to be one of the best-selling books that HarperCollins Publishers has ever published. And he goes, oh yeah, but we publish Agatha Christie. Oh yeah, but we, and I said, yeah, but no, seriously. Eventually, people believed me. We pushed the boat out. We printed, millions of copies. It sold 85 million copies plus.
Wow.
70 different languages. Paulo Coelho holds the Guinness Book of Records for being the most published living author of all time. And he's only in a few years ago was he overtaken by somebody else called J.K. Rowling with a book called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So what I find fascinating, one of the things I want to talk to you about today, actually, Vin, is that both these books are about alchemy. And they're both successful bestsellers. So that registered in my mind some years ago. So the reason why I actually didn't just find reading the book was a great transformational experience for me. But Paulo said he wanted to thank me, and he took me out for a meal with some friends, and he said, I really want to give you a gift, Colm, for believing. You know, you're the first person in the English translation to believe in my book. I want to give you something. And he said, so what I want to give you is I've already done it. I've spent a day of my time doing my alchemy magic just for you. Alchemy magic, okay, really? All right. Well, I have no idea what that is, but I have to say that my life has not been the same since. So I went from—
When was this, Colm? When was this?
1993.
Wow.
So I went from being a middle manager in a very large publishing company to running the largest digital agency in the whole of Australia at the time, back in 1997. We had 75 staff. We did the 2000 Olympics online. We had Toyota, we had Telstra, all these amazing clients. And my life just completely transformed. So that's my story in a nutshell. But I'm really interested about your story. How did you come across the original book? How old were you? How long ago?
I came across this book, first of all, when I was probably in my late teens. I was given this book by an uncle of mine who's an avid reader. And I remember he said to me, look, I've given you enough self-development books that are kind of, you know, non-fiction. Here's one that's kind of fiction. You should read this. And it was amazing because it came almost at the right time, because I felt like I was Santiago. You know, I felt like I was the character going through the story of life. And at the time I was questioning a lot of, you know, existential questions like, what's life about? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? So it was a perfect timing when I started to learn about, you know, having a personal legend.
Right. So
for me, the idea of a personal legend, you know, a purpose, I never used that as a fuel source. I never thought that was important up until I read the book. So I'm glad it crossed paths with me when I was very young. You know, it taught me so many vital things. One that stood out for me, Colm, was I had girlfriends when I was younger, and I always thought that we had to sacrifice dreams and we had to sacrifice what we wanted to become in a relationship.
Okay.
And I remember this core part in the book where it says, you know, we should never have to sacrifice our dreams for love. It's one of those things where these things go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You know, and how, you know, how Santiago met the girl in the desert and how she let him go. And it was just so many life lessons that to capture them at the age of 19, 20 served me so well as a young man.
Got it. So,
and then I found myself just kind of continually coming back to it going, what did I miss? And every time I've read it, I read it about 3 times now, Colm, and each time I read it at a different stage in my life, I get something completely different from it. It's unreal.
Did that change the way you were relating to the people around you at the time? You say you understood that true love actually is unconditional, essentially, is what you discovered there, yeah?
Yeah, well, you know, it's one of those things where we're all on our different journeys. And I think at the time, I remember having a partner where I kind of, you know, shared this thought with her. She had not read the book. She was like, no, that doesn't make sense. You know, it doesn't make sense for you not to compromise your dreams. And you know, we actually ended up parting ways, and the relationship didn't end up working out. But it's probably one of the best things that happened for me. But it's interesting to see that. And this is why I actually love reading overall, especially when you come across gems like this. I tend to say among my friends that our brains are like operating systems. And if you don't consume great books like this, they're like it's like an update to your operating system.
Yeah, download. Yeah.
Yeah, and as a young man, Colm, I was probably running bloody DOS, right? And when I got this book, it upgraded me up to Windows 95, it upgraded me up to Windows 2000.
Love that.
And then when I was around my friends, a lot of my friends who didn't consume, read these books, they were still running on Windows 95. And then I found myself not being able to connect with them anymore. And then slowly, finding new friendship groups, new partners, as we evolve.
So one of the things that in my book that I talk about when we're thinking about Paulo's original book, The Alchemist, and anybody listening who hasn't yet logged on to Amazon while you're listening to us, purchased the book directly, do it now. All right. You need this book, guys, girls.
You should do it twice.
Here's the thing. Yeah, I should. Yeah, I'll do the advert again in 10 minutes.
I'm still going to buy it twice as well. It's that brilliant.
Yeah. So the book is, for me, has been not more than just an inspiration. It actually has, like you, been transformational. What I realized after meeting Paulo personally and reading the book again is that somewhere in this book is a much deeper, fully magical power at work, because books like this don't just sell on their own. I've sold a lot of books. A Course in Miracles by Marianne Williamson, books by Dr. Wayne Dyer, sold millions, but none of them come close to this book. So what is it in this book? And then I actually, as I delved in, and I'm going to sort of throw the cat among the pigeons here, and I really want your view on this.
Sure.
So you're a magician. All right. Now, we'll have a little chat about that maybe in the second half, but you are a magician.
Yes.
I actually believe, and in my book I expose it, I actually believe that Paulo Coelho used alchemy magic, whatever we think about that, to help him, to inspire him, to almost instruct him in the writing of this book. He says he wrote it in 2 weeks, by the way. Well, as we say, 2 weeks and a lifetime. So drawing on the lifetime that's already existed, he just got this down on paper. And initially, the book was not a success at all. So he published it in Brazil, because he's Brazilian, he speaks Portuguese. And it was a flop. It was such a bad flop that, in fact, his publisher gave it him back. I think you know this story. And so what did he do? He went off into Arizona with his wife. They went to the US, and they went to the Arizona desert, and he communed magically with the universe. And he's written about it in a book called The Valkyries. So that's another book, everybody, that you should rush out and buy, called The Valkyries by Paulo Coelho. But he's not shy, Vin, that he personally, and in many of his introductions to different editions of the book, he actually says, I have been an alchemist. I mean, he's not metaphorically an alchemist. He is an alchemist. And so one of the things that I devoted my life to is to finding out what that was, because you can't Google it. Forget it. You're all busily Googling right now while you're listening to me and Vin. It's not there. It's not going to tell you how to become an alchemist. And but in here it does. And that's the big breakthrough that came to me. So I want to talk about magic, if I may.
Yeah, of course.
And magic in The Alchemist. So tell me, from you completely transformed your career with some friends of yours from, what were you, an accountant or something really interesting?
Yeah, I was pursuing commerce and law.
Oh, lovely. Yes. Well, that's
very boring.
So what happened? What was this? Why did you want to become a magician for a start?
Well, I got into magic fairly young, and I got into magic. I remember my first experience of magic was there's a place in South Australia, the city, it's called Rundle Mall, and there was a busker. His name was Ray Crow, and he was one of the very, very, very famous magician now, but back in the day, he used to busk in the city for money. And I remember the first time I saw him do something, I mean, I haven't been exposed to magic prior to this. And when I saw him do something, I had certain rules that this reality abides by. And then when I saw him take a playing card and then change it from one to another, that that just kind of conflicted with the rules that I had in reality. Right. I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense. You shouldn't be able to do that based on the rules that I've been taught by teachers, family members, elders. And then I just sat there and just kept watching. And then I just went, wow, does that mean that this reality is negotiable? Does that mean that you can actually do whatever you want? And so what intrigued me to it is this whole notion of, this reality isn't as kind of black and white as you think. There is kind of maybe this gray area that exists, which is quite interesting. But then a magician's journey, I think, is a peculiar one, because you're kind of fascinated by magic because of the unknown component. Oh, how do you do that? Oh my God, it's so magical. And then when you learn how the tricks are done, you become extremely disappointed. Because you go, oh no, that's how you did it. You just kind of did this sneaky move. And so the magician's journey is peaked with curiosity and then followed by immense disappointment. And then you truly learn why magic is magic. And you learn that the magic doesn't actually happen in your hands as the magician. The magic happens in the minds of your spectators.
Yes.
So then, then when you learn that kind of lesson, then the curiosity and the fascination and the astonishment continues. But secretly with magicians, we want magic to exist.
Yes.
And I think in every magician's mind that you meet, there's a part of them that, you'll find magicians are quite strange people. But when I was young, I just always wanted to go to, haunted houses or go see fortune tellers. Yeah. And a part of the reason why I did that was because I wanted to find real magic after being so severely disappointed by the fact that the magic I'm doing is not real. And a magician so eloquently said that a magician is just an actor playing the part of a magician. And I was so disappointed by that. I was like, oh no. And then, so you kind of go down this terrible path of trying to find, are psychics real? Do ghosts exist? Is the paranormal real? So it's funny. It's an interesting journey, to say the least.
Okay. Wow. So you've really opened up a whole can of worms there, in a sense. Tell me then.
Well, let's inspect them.
Yeah. I want to talk about real magic. Have you, at stages in your life, taken that principle that you can transform reality from one to another within yourself, Vinh? Have you engaged in transformational magic within your own psyche, for want of a better word?
What's really strange is, it's funny, but as magicians, you also at times become quite skeptical, right? I think as a magician, naturally, we are very prone to becoming a skeptic because, we go, even if we see another magician do something that's absolutely amazing and bizarre, you go, I bet you there's a method behind the madness. So you get taught that no matter how amazing something is, there's a method behind the madness, which I think takes a little bit of that magic away from us as individuals, which is really interesting when you think about it, because we are the people that represent magic, right?
Yeah.
But I think I've gone through life fairly skeptical. Even when I think about my own transformations, I tend to go down the most logical path of, oh, that's as a result of luck. It's as a result of hard work. It's a result of being in the right community with the right people. But if I keep an open mind, which I try to, I've definitely been able to do things in the last 3 years that if you asked me just 5 years ago, would I be able to speak on stages globally, be able to work with these companies? I'd tell you no, and I'd actually be quite offended, even if you suggested that was possible for me. So when I look back on that, I think that is such a magical transformation that I don't think I've done enough deep thinking into what actually happened there.
Wow. Was there a moment?
Yeah.
Was there a moment that you say that kicked that off?
There was someone that kicked it off for me.
Okay.
And it was one of my very early mentors, Matthew Mihilovich. So he's a very successful entrepreneur here in South Australia. I managed to win his friendship. We became really good friends. We're kind of, best buddies. And he opened my mind up to the possibilities. Funny that he did that for me when, a magician's meant to believe anything is possible, but for me it was questionable. But then when I met him, every time I set a goal, he would set that goal times 10 for me. And I would almost go home going, oh, this guy's lost his mind. But what's funny is he said it times 10, I hit it times 8.
Okay.
So just shy of what he set for me. And then I remember I just had coffee with him the other day and lunch with his family and my family. And I said, Matthew, what's amazing is I looked at a coffee meeting we had in the diary in the email in 2016, and you sent me this goal. I said it was crazy. I aimed for 10%. You said 100%. I hit 80% because of you. Okay. So to me, that was a moment where I remember every time I met him, he would talk to me with such certainty that there was greatness within me. There was all this potential. And at the time I was like, look, I'm lactose intolerant and what you're saying is very cheesy. But what's funny is it kind of came into fruition. I mean,
okay.
Was the alchemy involved there? I don't know, Colm. I don't know.
Paulo Coelho says there's 3 kinds of alchemists, and there are those who are just born alchemists and just are alchemists and do alchemy, can't explain it particularly because half the time they're not even aware that that's what they do. Maybe you're one of those. Maybe.
Well, can you define for me after you've studied for so long, how do you define alchemy?
Well, I'm not one of those. I'm not one of those alchemists. Let me tell you the other 2 categories. So the second alchemist is one who studies in a very academic, bookish way. And you remember there's a character in the original book called the Englishman?
Yes. That he met in the desert.
He tries to explain alchemy to Santiago. Tells him about the emerald tablet and the philosopher's stone and all that stuff. So there's that kind of alchemist, but they still can't explain what it is because there's too many ingredients. There's too much academia going on. It's too intellectual. And Paulo said he tried that and it nearly wrecked his life. And he actually pulled back from going down that road. It was a very slippy slope to destruction, and he came back out of that. So there's a third kind of alchemist, which is what I think Paulo is and what I think I am, and most people, which is we know there is a power in the universe. Now, I've actually given that power a name in my book. I actually call it unconditional love. And that's based on my experience. And if you go back again, if you get time, towards the end of The Alchemist, you'll remember that when Santiago is captured by the bandits, and the alchemist is with him, and they say, we're taking your treasure, we're taking your gold, we're going to kill you. And the alchemist says, well, before you kill us, why don't you let this boy turn himself into the wind and destroy this camp? You see?
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, that's an alchemy moment. And the fact that you've had a mentor in your life does not surprise me. I didn't know that, by the way, everybody, when I asked Vinh that question. Because an alchemist is somebody who understands the power of unconditional love and the ability for us to become truly empowered and actually possess all that we're really meant to be. So your alchemist, when he comes to you and says, you can do this, oh no, I can't. I can only do it 10%. Right? He says, no. He sees. That's how he sees in you, Vinh, the ability to become fully empowered, to become the person you are truly meant to be. And who wants this? Why does that happen? It's because the whole universe, to quote The Alchemist again, the whole universe, when we believe in that, will conspire, says Paulo.
Yeah.
The whole universe will conspire to help make that happen. So there is a commune with unconditional love. There is a knowledge. There is a undefeatable desire to enter into our own true empowerment. Now, I've read on your website, empowerment is something that's very precious to you, and that is alchemy. It's been around a long time. It's been around 4,000-5,000 years. It started in Egypt. It branched off into lots of different schools of alchemy. Most of them have died out completely. The one that Paulo revived was very much in thanks to Dr. Carl Jung. So Dr. Carl Jung and his whole theory of psychoanalysis of the unconscious mind, the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, archetypes, the shadow self, where we bury the pain and the wounds of our childhood and so on and so on, and how that can move into our consciousness.
Such a great mind, Carl Jung. Yeah.
All of that. Now that, Carl Jung was an alchemist. He was a student of alchemy. He collected all the books, and he thought, I think this is how the human psyche works. And then he collected the books on alchemy and said, oh yeah, look, it's the same. That's what they used to teach. Amazing. So Paulo Coelho drew on that when he wrote The Alchemist. So The Alchemist is the hero's journey. It is the boy leaving home, going out of his comfort zone, taking great risks, finding his treasure. But it's also another level. It is about that inner journey that all of us, whether we realize it or not, have to pursue in order to become fully empowered. So something must be going on when your mentor says, you can do this, man.
I mean,
having to process.
Well, one thing that really stood out in the book was when I remember this one line I read, that it was something along the lines of, we tend to paint our futures with paint from the past.
Yeah.
And I love that line so much, because I think what Matthew helped me do was he helped me paint the future with paint from the future. Whereas I often paint my future with paint from the past. I tend to look at where I've come from and then go, well, if that's where I come from, then my trajectory can no way be that high, because based on the past, the trajectory should be here. It should be linear, right? So then again, I thought that was so valuable. And something you said just triggered a thought in me, which, when you ask me what is alchemy, it just makes me, some reason I think, I don't know why I think of this. I think of a witch with a really big pot and stirring ingredients that she's going to make some kind of magical potion.
Well, we could do that as well if you want.
No, but then what I think is, instead of being a pot of green potion like you see in the cartoons, I see it as we're an alchemist in the sense that there are going to be ideas and thoughts and visions and goals and mentors and teachers that come our way. And somehow we have to mix those thoughts, ideas, and visions in this pot. And we're doing alchemy with these ingredients that life and the universe brings us.
Exactly. You got it.
And depending, unconditional love, and depending on how and what mixture of ingredients you put into this pot, you will create gold, or you will create bronze, or, maybe something less attractive like, manure. So I think it's just depending on how you mix this together, you'll get a certain result. So in a way, we're all kind of alchemists, aren't we? In that we,
absolutely. Something you just said there about we use the paint of the past to paint our future. You're quite one of the more fortunate people by the sound from what you say, in as much that you are able to look to the future and repaint that accordingly. Some people, sadly, in their previous life, in the life of their past, have been so badly damaged along the way that some of the past just won't go away. Some of the past hangs around, it lingers. And I know lots of people listening to this podcast today are going to say, Vinh, that's amazing, you're amazing, I wish I could do that. I mean, the fact is, yes, they can, but it's almost as if they've got this past that's on their shoulder, they're having to drag it along. Letting go of that past can be a real struggle. And what I've learned in the art of alchemy is that within the art of alchemy there is a process that they outline to let that go. You can get rid of the baggage, for want of a better word. You don't have to keep dragging it as you try and move forward into the future. You can let that baggage go. And in my book, The Secret of the Alchemist, is the cover up here. I tell the story of how that's what I had to do. I had some baggage. I had quite a lot of baggage. And one of the last things that happened in my process was meeting Paulo Coelho, who essentially said, the last bit of baggage, Colm, that you need to get rid of is you actually need to just decide what you want. What do you actually want to happen, you know. And that, for many people, that's one of the hardest decisions that we ever, you know, what do you know, Vinh, what do you want? You know, what's next? You know, where is your core, what I call our core heart's intent? Because in my experience, that's what the universe looks at. The universe is looking for our core heart intent, and that's what it will conspire to help, you know, bring that back. We're nearly out of time. Can you believe that? We just nearly blew. Where did that half an hour go? That was like, what?
That's crazy.
I know, we just blew half an hour. So everybody, this is Vinh Giang, the famous inspirational entrepreneur, magician, speaker. I'm Colm, Holland. We're really grateful that you've been able to join us in this first session that we've had together. But don't go away. Come back next week. We are actually going to keep this conversation going. And if you want to know more about Vinh, when they can find you on your website, Vinh, vinhgiang.com, is that right?
Yeah, I probably should spell it from it's vinhgiang.com.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today. And come back, everybody, next week, where we're going to be keeping this amazing conversation with a real magician. It's the first time I've ever had a real magician in my Alchemy Lab. Thanks so much for coming today, Vinh.
Pleasure.